In our culture of endless optimization and self-betterment, we rarely stop to ask a fundamental question. What if our relentless pursuit of self-improvement is actually making us worse off? Welcome to the dark side of self-improvement, why it's ruining your life. Today we're going to explore how the multi-billion-dollar self-improvement industry might be causing more harm than good, and what we can do about it. The self-improvement industry has ballooned into a massive enterprise built on a simple yet troubling premise that you are perpetually incomplete, flawed, and in need of fixing. While personal growth can be beneficial when approached mindfully, research reveals concerning patterns suggesting that modern self-improvement culture often undermines the very well-being it claims to enhance. Let's begin with the psychological foundation of self-improvement culture. Many of us embark on journeys of personal development, not from a place of self-compassion or genuine curiosity, but from feelings of inadequacy and unworthiness. LA-based psychotherapist Shira Miro describes this phenomenon as unconscious self-aggression, where our inner critic drives us to constantly improve because we believe we're fundamentally not good enough. This perspective aligns with Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron's view that self-improvement can be a form of self-aggression when it stems from a belief that we're not intrinsically whole or complete. The messaging embedded in self-improvement literature reinforces this sense of inadequacy. Through inspirational stories of transformation and success, we are subtly, or not so subtly, told that there's something wrong with us that needs fixing. As noted by Shivendra Misra, this feeling gives rise to a strong impulse to fix whatever is wrong, to consider ourselves as worthy of success of any kind. Most self-improvement stems, therefore, from a place of unworthiness. This mindset creates a perpetual cycle of seeking improvement without ever reaching a state of satisfaction with oneself. The psychological impact extends beyond feelings of inadequacy to create a persistent state of anxiety. When we absorb messages like, "Do you have what it takes?" or "The real failure is to be average," we internalize self-doubt from the beginning of our personal development journeys. At the heart of the self-improvement dilemma lies a fundamental paradox. How can we simultaneously accept ourselves as we are while striving to become better? This tension creates cognitive dissonance and emotional strain. The underlying message of many self-improvement methods, that we must constantly evolve, optimize, and perfect ourselves, directly contradicts the psychological need for self-acceptance and self-compassion. Miro addresses this paradox by suggesting a shift from self-improvement to self-care, emphasizing that self-care can also feel unnatural at first, especially if feelings of guilt, shame, and deficiency are what typically drive us to take care of ourselves. This insight highlights how deeply ingrained our negative self-perception can be, to the point where caring for ourselves feels undeserved or inappropriate. The contradiction between being told to love ourselves while simultaneously being told we need to improve creates a psychologically untenable position. The self-improvement industry rarely acknowledges this paradox, instead promoting a narrative that complete transformation is both necessary and achievable. This perspective fails to recognize that imperfection is an inherent aspect of humanity. As one critic notes, we are all imperfect and we always will be. Self-improvement that is focused on always being better and better and better convinces us that imperfection cannot coexist with greatness. This mindset creates impossible standards and sets individuals up for perpetual dissatisfaction. While self-improvement focuses intensely on individual growth and achievement, it often neglects the significant role that social connections play in human well-being. The hyper-focus on personal development can lead to social disconnection, which ironically undermines overall life satisfaction and happiness. Research indicates that strong social bonds are consistently associated with greater well-being. Yet, the self-improvement culture predominantly emphasizes individual achievement over communal connection. This trend toward individualism has real consequences. According to Autumn Shields, if self-development has been the trend in recent years, why is it that people feel less happy now? Gallup has been polling Americans on how they're feeling about different aspects of life and policy issues for the last 2 decades. Just this year, across those 29 different measurements, 38% of Americans say they're satisfied in life. This statistic suggests a correlation between the rise of self-improvement culture and declining life satisfaction. The social disconnection occurs through multiple mechanisms. First, the time and energy devoted to self-improvement activities often comes at the expense of relationship building and community participation. Second, the emphasis on individual achievement can foster competition rather than cooperation, creating barriers to genuine connection. This neglect of social bonds represents one of the most significant hidden costs of the self-improvement movement. Furthermore, the individualistic focus creates a narrow definition of success based primarily on personal achievement, wealth, status, and material possessions. This leads to a sense of competition and comparison with others, further isolating us from the connections that are vital to our emotional and mental health. The consequence is a society where individuals pursue personal excellence, but experience increasing isolation and disconnection, a formula that research consistently shows leads to diminished well-being. Another problematic aspect of self-improvement culture is the promotion of standardized methods and universal solutions that fail to account for individual differences, circumstances, and needs. These one-size-fits-all approaches set unrealistic standards and create pressure to conform to idealized notions of success, productivity, and personal growth. The result is often disappointment, frustration, and self-blame when individuals cannot achieve the promised results. A major problem with these standardized approaches is the establishment of unattainable benchmarks. The self-help industry highlights success stories of ultra-productive, disciplined, or happy people, which can set unattainable benchmarks for the rest of the consumers. By showcasing exceptional outcomes without properly contextualizing the unique circumstances, privileges, or resources that contributed to those outcomes, these stories distort reality and set most people up for perceived failure. This distortion creates a harmful focus on flaws and shortcomings. Since self-help identifies areas of improvement by its nature, the movement can lead people to fixate on their shortcomings, rather than promoting balanced self-awareness. Many self-improvement programs inadvertently encourage hyper-focus on deficiencies. Paradoxically, this can become counterproductive, and participants can become more dissatisfied or unhappy than they were in the first place. The rigidity of many self-improvement protocols compounds this problem. Programs that demand strict adherence to specific routines or practices leave little room for adaptation to individual needs or circumstances. These approaches often suggest that you must prescribe to the method exactly, or the method will not work. This all-or-nothing mentality creates a binary where partial progress is devalued, and flexibility, a crucial element of sustainable change, is discouraged. Among the most insidious aspects of self-improvement culture is the pervasive presence of toxic positivity, the excessive and ineffective overgeneralization of a happy, optimistic state across all situations. This approach dismisses negative emotions and experiences, creating pressure to maintain positive thinking even in circumstances where more complex emotional responses would be appropriate and healthy. Toxic positivity is the voice of that influencer, constantly cheering her followers on and reminding them that everything is going to be great even when it's not. It's the book that never contains a chapter about setbacks and negative emotions, making the reader feel lost when they hit a roadblock. This one-dimensional approach to emotional experience creates unrealistic expectations about the human emotional spectrum and can lead to suppression of authentic feelings. The pressure to maintain constant positivity and progress creates a significant burden when individuals inevitably experience negative emotions, setbacks, or periods of stagnation. They often feel they are failing at self-improvement itself. This leads to additional layers of shame and inadequacy on top of whatever challenges they were already facing. We cannot realistically live in a world of constant positivity. This expectation that we can and always should be progressing and feeling optimistic is crushing. Perhaps most troublingly, toxic positivity creates an environment where individuals blame themselves for circumstances beyond their control. By downplaying external factors, self-help guides can actually get in the way of some of the very things they say they're trying to foster: self-awareness and authenticity. This failure to acknowledge systemic issues, privilege disparities, and random life events creates a distorted worldview where individuals feel entirely responsible for outcomes that are partially or largely determined by external factors. The self-improvement industry has become a massive commercial enterprise, with profit motives often superseding genuine concern for individuals' well-being. This commercialization creates perverse incentives that shape the industry's messaging and methods in ways that may be counterproductive to authentic personal growth. The scale of this commercialization is staggering. Self-help gurus have amassed considerable wealth through their programs, books, seminars, and other products. Tony Robbins, famous for his coaching programs and self-improvement seminars, is worth about $600 million, while Deepak Chopra, known for his wellness programs and speaking engagements, has written over 90 books and has a net worth of about $80 million. These figures raise questions about whether financial incentives might influence the content and claims of self-improvement programs. The profit motive influences the types of solutions promoted by the industry. Generic, broadly applicable approaches have wider market appeal than nuanced, context-specific methods. In monetary terms, the more broad the proposed solutions are, the more people will buy into their possibility. This leads to an emphasis on simplified, universalized methods that promise quick results, approaches that often lack scientific validation and fail to address the complex, individualized nature of personal development. This commercial orientation can lead to exploitation of vulnerabilities. The industry capitalizes on people's insecurities, anxieties, and desires for better lives, sometimes making unrealistic promises to sell products. This can lead to predatory practices from self-proclaimed gurus who might exploit people's vulnerabilities with overpriced, ineffective programs and prioritize profit over genuine growth. The high financial stakes create incentives for exaggerated claims and manipulative marketing rather than evidence-based, ethical approaches. While the self-improvement industry often makes bold claims about effectiveness, scientific research has begun to document potential negative impacts of certain self-help approaches. These studies provide empirical support for concerns about the dark side of self-improvement and suggest a need for more critical evaluation of common personal development practices. One significant study examined the physiological and neurological responses to self-help books. The 2016 research looked at the physical and neurological reaction to people consuming self-help books, and found that consumers of growth-oriented self-help books presented high cortisol, the stress hormone. Elevated cortisol is associated with stress, anxiety, and various negative health outcomes, suggesting that even passive consumption of self-improvement content may create physiological stress responses. The same study found that consumers of problem-focused self-help books had high depressive symptoms. This finding directly contradicts the ostensible purpose of such books, which is to alleviate problems and improve well-being. Instead, the research suggests that engaging with these materials may actually intensify negative psychological states. Even though we turn to these types of books to feel better, happier, smarter, and healthier, they physiologically and emotionally can make us actually feel worse. These scientific findings align with anecdotal reports and theoretical critiques that suggest self-improvement approaches can backfire, creating or exacerbating the very problems they claim to solve. The emphasis on constant improvement creates expectations that trigger stress responses and feelings of inadequacy when those expectations aren't met. One of the less obvious but profoundly important negative impacts of rigid self-improvement regimens is the potential loss of authenticity, spontaneity, and creative expression. When individuals become overly focused on following prescribed methods for success or personal growth, they may suppress aspects of themselves that don't align with those methods, resulting in diminished authenticity and restricted self-expression. Self-improvement advice often emphasizes discipline and positivity over creativity and spontaneity. If we're following self-help methods to improve ourselves, we might suppress authentic behaviors or preferences that don't align with our prescribed method. This suppression can lead to a disconnection from one's true interests, desires, and natural inclinations in favor of conforming to externally defined notions of success or growth. The rigid structure of many self-improvement programs can also limit exploration and discovery. When individuals become overly committed to specific routines or goals, they may miss opportunities for unexpected growth or pleasure. Consider this scenario. You could be on a fitness journey to get stronger and suddenly discover that you love playing tennis. However, your routine is already filled with daily lifting and HIIT sessions, leaving no time for other activities. Do you sacrifice exploring something you love or are interested in just because it doesn't fit the program? The emphasis on measurable progress and optimization can devalue subjective experiences and forms of growth that cannot be easily quantified. By becoming over-reliant on metrics, habits, and goal setting, individuals may lose sight of the bigger picture and end up sidelining more subjective and unconventional self-expression. This metric-driven approach can diminish the richness and diversity of human experience in favor of standardized notions of success and development. Despite the significant concerns raised about contemporary self-improvement culture, personal growth and development remain worthwhile pursuits when approached mindfully. The key lies in finding balanced approaches that avoid the pitfalls described above while still supporting authentic development. Shifting from self-improvement to self-care represents one such alternative. Psychotherapist Shiramiro emphasizes this distinction, suggesting that approaches focused on self-compassion and self-acceptance may be more sustainable and psychologically healthy than those driven by self-criticism or perceived inadequacy. Her platform, Evenflow, takes this approach by offering meditation-focused content that is almost akin to therapy on the go, providing practical tools for mindfulness without the pressure of perfectionism. Acknowledging the role of external factors and circumstances is another important element of balanced personal development. Rather than placing all responsibility on the individual, healthier approaches recognize the complex interplay between personal agency and systemic or environmental factors. This recognition helps reduce self-blame when circumstances beyond one's control affect outcomes and allows for more realistic goal setting and expectations. Prioritizing social connection alongside individual growth can help counterbalance the isolating tendencies of typical self-improvement practices. As Autumn Shields notes, in today's world, we are bombarded with messages that emphasize the importance of self-care, self-improvement, and self-actualization. However, there's barely a whisper about the importance of connecting with others, or how to improve the community in which you live. Integrating community engagement and relationship building into personal development efforts can create more holistic growth that enhances rather than diminishes overall well-being. In conclusion, the dark side of self-improvement culture reveals significant concerns about its psychological, social, and ethical implications. From fostering feelings of inadequacy and promoting toxic positivity, to creating social disconnection and enabling commercial exploitation, current approaches to personal development often undermine the very well-being they claim to enhance. Scientific evidence increasingly supports these concerns, suggesting that uncritical engagement with self-improvement practices may actually increase stress, anxiety, and depressive symptoms. However, this critique does not negate the value of thoughtful personal growth. Rather, it calls for more nuanced, balanced approaches that prioritize self-compassion, authenticity, and social connection alongside individual development. By shifting focus from fixing perceived deficiencies to nurturing existing strengths, from rigid optimization to flexible exploration, and from individualistic achievement to community engagement, we can pursue personal growth in ways that genuinely enhance well-being. The most sustainable path forward likely involves integrating personal development with self-acceptance, understanding that growth does not require rejecting our current selves, but rather building upon who we already are. We might benefit from approaching personal development from a place of self-compassion and self-acceptance, rather than self-criticism or perceived inadequacy. This more balanced approach acknowledges both our inherent worth and our capacity for growth, allowing us to pursue improvement without sacrificing authenticity or well-being in the process. Remember, true growth might not look like what the self-help industry has been selling us. It might be messier, more authentic, and more connected than we've been led to believe.